This is Steve Kelley for the second episode of the Iris Unscripted. The Iris Network is a nonprofit agency that works statewide throughout the state of Maine for folks with a vision impairment or blindness, and often we do that in partnership with the Division for the Blind and Visually Impaired. And I'm here this morning with a very reluctant John Allen and Bonnie Gouzie, who both work in the At Ease department, which is Access Technology and Employment for the Iris Network. And I'm going to ask you both simultaneously or one at a time to tell me who you are, what your job title is here, and then we could have a brief discussion about the employment situation, which I heard this morning. General unemployment across the country is 3.8%. Employment for folks with blindness or visual impairment is somewhere between 65 and 70%. It hasn't changed much in decades, and I'm kind of curious why, and if there are one or two things you think would make a positive difference. So I will start with John Allen.
Good morning. I am a access technology instructor here in the Rehab Center, and I'm also an employment specialist helping people with job development or job coaching.
Thanks, John. And Bonnie?
I'm the Director of Access Technology and Employment Services at the Iris Network.
So, John, and jump in, Bonnie, if you wish. We
Sure.
can do this together.
I think the biggest obstacle for people getting employment that are blind or visually impaired, and I don't even need to limit it to blindness and visual impairment, but I think it's public education. I think there's too many times people just don't know about blindness or about hard of hearing or whatever it is that makes you a little bit different than the rest. And that scares them, and they don't have the education to know that the people that are coming in are equally as qualified and can do as good a job, if not better, than someone who doesn't have these differences. And that's what I think we need to do, is educate the public more.
So that would be at the top of your list.
That is the top of my list.
Bonnie, what's at the top of your list? What's the biggest hurdle?
Again, I think it's education and people thinking that somebody with a visual impairment can't do certain aspects of the job, and some of the publication of the tragedy of being blind or having a vision impairment, that it's the worst disability. I'm hoping that with more technology and access to print, that we'll be working through that better. I think also one of the big things that people have been put in jobs that they aren't capable of doing, and instead of making sure it's a good job match, people get just any job to get a job, and it's not a good job match, and therefore doesn't work out. So
If we could do one or two things after this conversation to change those statistics, to change the employment environment, what might that be? And it could be very small things, individually.
I think what's important, I think something that we do, but we need to do more of, is presentations, lectures, meeting with people, getting out to groups of people and showing them how a person who is blind can access a computer or their iPhone or any of these devices.
So would your focus be on employers for that, or just the general public?
Well, it would be great to say the general public, and I think that's awesome, but I guess in reality we'd have to target the employers so that we could help with that unemployment rate. Yes, it's general education to the general public. Everybody needs it. But if we're really going to try to work on the employment piece of it, then I think we need to have more involvement with the employers and have more group discussions with them and demonstrations and showing them what a person who is blind can do.
Bonnie, what would be?
I certainly agree with that, and have, as a track record, doing the lunch and learns, going into business and industry, doing presentation while they're having their lunch and bringing dessert, and talking to managers and HR in business. We really got a lot of energy and positive feedback. Again, having open houses, inviting employers here, seeing people work, the technology that they can do to access. We had got great results from that. And also, just having the concept that if part of filing is somebody's job, to file being blind is really not time efficient for a company. So job share, that piece of filing, have somebody else do that, but have the person that needs to use access technology do the other pieces of that job. To the job share. I really like that concept.
So I'm hearing that if they have the right technology, then things are accessible, and then to be creative, a little bit out of the box in terms of job sharing and figuring out which tasks are most appropriate for which people. That really doesn't sound like an accommodation to me. It sounds like good business sense. But John, any last thoughts?
No, I agree with Bonnie. I think that's awesome to be able to think proactively like that. And that's what we try to get companies to do, is to think outside the box and to help them understand that there are different ways to do it. It's not quite so black and white, and that it can be done. And we would love to show them how to do it.
Well, thank you both this morning. This is Steve Kelley. I'm a vision rehab therapist at the Iris Network, and this is Iris Unscripted. And if you're interested in more information about us or services, the number is 207-774-6273, or on the web, www.theiris.org. Thank you.